My brother destroyed my gaming PC and my parents laughed. It's just a toy. I took my dad's vintage car keys and sold it to a scrapyard. It was just a car, I said. Now he's mad, but I'm done. Hey, Reddit. My younger brother smashed my custom gaming PC that I spent 2 years saving for, and my parents laughed it off as boys being boys. So I sold Dad's precious 1967 Mustang to a scrapyard for $200. Now suddenly, property damage isn't funny anymore. Here's how it all went down. I'm 24 male, working as a dental lab technician in Phoenix. Not glamorous work, but it pays decent. I make crowns, bridges, and dentures. Started as an apprentice right out of high school and worked my way up to senior technician. My brother Damien is 19 and has been the family golden child since birth. Kids never worked a real job, dropped out of community college after one semester, and spends his days gaming in our parents' basement while they praise him for finding himself. I moved out at 20, got my own apartment across town, and visit maybe once a week for dinner. That's about all I can handle. My parents, George and Linda, are typical suburban middle-class folks who somehow convince themselves their younger son walks on water while their older son is just there. Dad manages a car parts warehouse. Mom does medical billing from home. The gaming PC becomes relevant because I'd been saving for 2 years to build my dream setup. Custom everything. High-end graphics card, liquid cooling, RGB lighting, triple monitors. Total investment around $3,200. On my salary while paying rent and loans, that's serious money. I built it piece by piece, researching every component obsessively. The finished product was beautiful, with clean cable management and perfect temps. Posted pictures in PC forums and got tons of compliments. Gaming was my main hobby after work. A few hours of competitive shooters or side projects, 3D modeling, programming, video editing. The PC was my creative outlet and stress relief. Here's where the family dynamic gets important. Every time I visited, Damien would beg to use my gaming setup. I'd refuse because the kid has zero respect for property. He's the type who'll leave greasy fingerprints everywhere, spill drinks near electronics, and rage quit by slamming things. My parents always defended him. Why can't you share? You're being selfish. I'd explain Damien had his own setup. PS5, laptop, newer TV than mine. Not exactly suffering, but logic never worked. I was the successful older brother who should be generous. Damien was the baby who needed support. 3 weeks ago, I mentioned I'd be out of town for a work conference in San Diego. 2-day seminar about new 3D printing techniques. I mentioned this at Sunday dinner. Damien's eyes lit up immediately. So your apartment will be empty? Can I crash there? I said no. Damien in my apartment unsupervised? No way. He pushed. Just one night. He'd be quiet. Classic promises from someone who never keeps promises. I held firm. My parents started their usual routine about family and me being unreasonable. The dinner ended tensely. I left without giving Damien my spare key. 3 days later in San Diego, I got a text from my downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Your brother is at your apartment. My blood went cold. I called her immediately. Saw him letting himself in with a key and friends. Figured you should know. I tried calling Damien. Voicemail. Tried my parents. No answer. Then I checked my security camera app. Damien was there with 2 friends using my gaming PC. They were in my office, drinking, laughing, messing with everything. I called Damien. He finally picked up. Hey man, what's up? Get out of my apartment right now. Chill. Mom gave me the spare key. Mom gave him the key. The emergency key I'd given my parents for actual emergencies. I don't care who gave you a key. Get out now or I'm calling the police. He laughed. You're not going to call the cops on your own brother. Get out now. He hung up on me. I sat there watching the camera feed, called my parents. Dad answered. Did you give Damien my spare key? Long pause. Your mother thought it would be fine. That key was for emergencies. This is an emergency. He needed somewhere to go. I told Dad if Damien wasn't out in 30 minutes, I was calling police. You wouldn't do that to your own brother. Watch me. 20 minutes passed. They were still there. I called the non-emergency line, explained the situation. Operators sent officers for a welfare check. I watched the camera as 2 officers arrived. Damien and friends looked panicked. Officers had them leave and checked the apartment was empty. My phone exploded with messages. Damien, can't believe you called the cops. Mom, how could you do that? Dad, we need to talk. I didn't respond. The seminar ended. I drove straight home around 7 p.m. to check the damage. Apartment was mostly normal. Kitchen clean, bathroom fine. My office, though. Chair adjusted wrong, keyboard moved, greasy fingerprints on my monitor, energy drink cans in the trash. Then I noticed my $300 wireless gaming headset was missing. Called Damien. No answer. Texted, "Where's my headset?" No response. Called my parents. Mom answered saying Damien borrowed it and he'd return it when done. That's theft. Stop being dramatic. It's just a headset. I told her Damien had 24 hours to return it, or I'd file a police report. You're going to get your brother arrested over a headset? Damien showed up the next evening without the headset. Said he couldn't find it and maybe left it at a friend's house. I changed my locks the next day. $120 for a locksmith, but worth the peace of mind. 2 weeks later, Mom called with a peace offering. Family dinner to clear the air. She promised Damien would apologize and return the headset. I showed up Saturday to find Damien gaming, not even acknowledging me. Dinner was awkward. No apology came. I asked about the headset 3 times before Damien said he'd left it in his car and would grab it later. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside in the garage where he keeps his 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback. Highland green like the Bullet car. Bought it in 1995 for $8,000. Restored it himself over years. This car is immaculate and Dad's entire personality. Never driven in rain or winter. Lives under a custom cover with temperature controls. Current value around $75,000. Dad started his speech about family and forgiveness next to this automotive shrine. Damien's young. He makes mistakes. He's 19. Old enough to know better. He's family. You need to let this go. Does family steal from family? He still has my headset. It's just a headset. I'll buy you a new one. There it was again. Just my stuff. Nothing about what I wanted mattered, because Damien's comfort took priority. It's the principle. He broke into my apartment and stole from me. Be the bigger person. You're older, more mature, make good money. You don't need to hold a grudge over small stuff. We went in circles. Eventually, Dad played his trump card about what kind of person I was for not forgiving my brother. That crystallized everything. Every time Damien crossed a line, I was supposed to be the bigger person. His bad behavior was never the problem. My reaction was, I was done. Left without saying goodbye. Damien never apologized. Parents looked disappointed. Later that night, Damien texted, "Stop being such a baby about this. It's just gaming stuff." That's when I decided they needed to learn what just stuff really meant. Dad's Mustang keys lived on a hook by the garage door. I knew this because I'd seen them there 1,000 times growing up. He kept the car keys separate from his daily driver keys, labeled with a vintage Ford keychain. Sunday morning, I drove to my parents' house at 6 a.m., early enough that everyone would be asleep. Let myself in through the garage side door. That lock hadn't changed since I was a teenager, and I still had my old key. The Mustang sat there under its cover. I pulled the cover off carefully, folded it, and set it on Dad's workbench. Grabbed the keys from the hook. The engine started with that beautiful 390 V8 rumble that probably woke the neighborhood. I let it warm up for a minute because I'm not a monster. Didn't want to damage the engine by revving it cold. Then I drove it out of the garage, down the driveway, and headed across town to Ace Auto Salvage. Ace Auto is where the lab sends old equipment for scrap metal recycling. The owner, Raymond, is this gruff 50-something who doesn't ask many questions. Pulled up at 7:15 a.m., just as they were opening. Raymond came out looking surprised to see the Mustang. "That's a nice car. What are you doing here with it? Want to sell it for scrap?" He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You want to scrap a 67 Mustang Fastback? Kid, that car's worth real money. Like, a lot of money. I'll give you scrap weight, but you'd get way more selling it properly. We're talking 50, 60 grand to the right buyer. Not interested in selling it properly. How much for scrap?" Raymond walked around the car slowly, clearly conflicted between his business sense and whatever code of ethics salvage yard owners have about destroying classics. He ran his hand along the fender, shook his head. "Look, I'll give you $200 for scrap weight, but I'm telling you right now that's a terrible deal. This is a crime against automotive history. $200 works." He made me sign paperwork confirming I owned the vehicle and had the right to sell it. I signed my dad's name without hesitation. If Damien could steal from me without consequences, I could forge a signature without guilt. Raymond counted out $200 in cash, handed me a receipt, and I walked away from Dad's pride and joy, sitting in a salvage yard waiting to be dismantled. Caught an Uber home and went back to bed. Slept better than I had in weeks. My phone started ringing around 9 a.m. Ignored it. Then more calls. Text messages piling up. I let them accumulate for a few hours before finally checking. 48 missed calls. 67 text messages. "Dad, where is my car?" "Dad, what did you do?" "Dad, call me right now." "Mom, Your father's car is missing. Do you know anything about this? Mom. This isn't funny. Call us immediately. Damien. Dude, did you take Dad's Mustang? He's losing his mind. More messages in similar veins. Increasingly frantic. Apparently, they'd called the police to report the car stolen, then checked their security camera and saw me taking it. I waited until noon before responding to Dad's most recent message with a simple, "It's just a car." My phone rang immediately. Dad, absolutely losing his mind. What did you do with my car? Sold it. Silence. Then an inhuman sound somewhere between a scream and a howl. You sold my car? My car? Where is it? Scrapyard. Got $200 for it. I could hear Mom in the background asking what was happening. Dad must have put me on speaker because suddenly her voice came through clear. You sold your father's car to a scrapyard? Have you lost your mind? Nope. Just wanted to teach everyone a lesson about respecting other people's property. Dad was hyperventilating. That car is worth $75,000. You sold it for $200? Well, yeah. It's just a car. Just metal and parts. Nothing to get worked up about. The irony was completely lost on him. You destroyed a classic car. Do you understand what you've done? About as much as you understood when Damien broke into my apartment and stole my stuff. Remember? It was just gaming stuff. Just a toy. Nothing important. Silence again as the parallel hit them. Mom recovered first. This is completely different. That car was irreplaceable. It was your father's dream car. And my gaming PC was 2 years of saving and work. But apparently that didn't matter because it was just toys. You can rebuild a computer, Dad shouted. I can't rebuild that car. Sure you can. You did it once already. Just find another 67 Mustang and restore it. Should only take you about 15 years and every weekend like last time. Where is the car right now? I gave him the address of Ace Auto Salvage. Ask for Raymond. Nice guy. Gave me a fair price. Hung up and blocked both their numbers. The aftermath was nuclear. Dad showed up at the salvage yard within the hour. Raymond later told me the whole story. Apparently, Dad arrived screaming about stolen property and demanding his car back. Raymond showed him the signed paperwork. Dad insisted the signature was forged, but couldn't prove it. His name was on the title. The signature matched reasonably well, and Raymond had no reason to suspect fraud. The Mustang was already being processed for parts when Dad arrived. They drained the fluids, removed the engine, and started cutting up the body for scrap metal. The thing about salvage yards, once they buy a car, they move fast. Time is money, and storage space is limited. Dad threatened to sue Raymond, threatened to call the police, threatened everything he could think of. Raymond just shrugged and showed him the bill of sale again. Legal transaction, proper paperwork, nothing he could do about seller's remorse. Then Dad tried to buy it back. Offered Raymond $5,000 cash right there. Raymond said he'd already sold the engine to a guy who rebuilds vintage motors. The interior was stripped and sold to an upholstery guy. The body panels were in the crusher. Nothing left to buy back. Dad apparently sat down in the dirt and cried. A 55-year-old man crying in a salvage yard over a car that was just metal and parts. Mom called from a different number I hadn't blocked yet. I answered. I hope you're happy. Your father is devastated. Absolutely devastated. Interesting. When Damien devastated me by violating my home and stealing my property, you told me to get over it. Those situations aren't comparable. They're exactly comparable. Damien destroyed something I worked hard for and valued deeply. I destroyed something Dad worked hard for and valued deeply. Only difference is you care when it happens to Dad. You're being vindictive and cruel. Nope, I'm being exactly as considerate as you taught Damien to be. This is learned behavior. She tried the family guilt angle. How could I do this to my own father? Didn't I care about him at all? This would destroy our relationship forever. I pointed out that relationship was already destroyed when they gave Damien my key to break into my apartment. This was just me making the destruction official. You need to make this right, Mom demanded. How? The car is gone. Cut up for parts. Nothing I can do about it now. But hey, Dad can always get another one. They made lots of 67 Mustangs. I'm sure he can find one for sale somewhere. Those cars cost a fortune now. Then maybe he shouldn't have raised a son who doesn't respect other people's property. Seems like a parenting failure to me. She hung up. I blocked that number too. My cousin Felicia called later that day. She'd apparently heard about the whole situation through the family grapevine and wanted to check in. So you really scrapped Uncle George's Mustang? Yep. That's hardcore. I'm honestly impressed. Felicia had always been the black sheep of the family for pushing back against their nonsense. She'd moved to Colorado years ago, partly to escape family drama. Want to know the best part? I told her about Damien breaking in, the stolen headset, and how mom and dad had dismissed everything as me being dramatic over just gaming stuff. Oh man, I bet Uncle George is losing his mind. Completely. Apparently he cried at the salvage yard. Felicia laughed. Good. Maybe this'll teach them something about consequences. We talked for a while about family dynamics and why some parents pick favorites. She'd dealt with similar stuff growing up. Her younger brother could do no wrong while she was constantly criticized for not being family-oriented enough. The thing about families like ours, Felicia said, is they only understand boundaries when you enforce them with consequences. You tried talking, you tried explaining, you tried setting rules. They ignored all of it. So you made them feel what it's like to have something valuable destroyed. Think they learned anything? Probably not, but at least you're not a doormat anymore. She had a point. For years I'd been swallowing their favoritism and disrespect, telling myself it wasn't worth fighting about. Being the bigger person, letting things slide, all that accomplished was teaching them they could walk all over me without pushback. The police did eventually show up at my apartment. 2 officers asking about the car situation. I explained that yes, I'd taken the car and sold it to a salvage yard. Showed them the text messages from Damien bragging about breaking into my apartment. Showed them the camera footage of him and his friends using my stuff. Explained how my parents had given him unauthorized access to my home. So this is a family dispute? The older officer said. More like retaliation for property violations that my family refused to take seriously. The officers exchanged looks. They'd clearly seen this type of situation before. Look, technically you could be charged with auto theft, but given the family relationship and the circumstances, we'd rather you all handle this civilly. My family doesn't do civil. They do enablement and favoritism. The younger officer almost smiled at that. Still, might want to consider making some kind of restitution before your dad decides to press charges. He can press charges if he wants. I'll press charges for Damien breaking into my apartment and stealing my headset. We can both explain to a judge why we think our property matters more than the other person's. They took notes and left. Said they'd file a report, but probably nothing would come of it unless Dad formally pressed charges, which would open up the whole can of worms about Damien's break-in. Next few days were weird. I went to work like normal, came home like normal, but this tension hung over everything knowing my family was probably plotting something. Sure enough, Damien showed up at my apartment Wednesday evening. Didn't knock, just started pounding on the door and yelling, "Open up! We need to talk!" I watched through the peephole as he continued making a scene in the hallway. Mrs. Chen from downstairs stuck her head out to see what was happening. "You screwed everything up!" Damien yelled at my door. "Dad's completely broken over this. How could you do that to him?" I opened the door. Same way you could break into my apartment. Just didn't think about consequences. That's not the same thing at all. Sure it is. You violated my property. I violated Dad's property. Basic cause and effect. His face was red with anger. Dad never did anything to you. His car was innocent. And my gaming PC was innocent when you used it without permission. My apartment was innocent when you broke in. Funny how you only care about property rights when it's not your property being violated. You're insane. You know that? Actually insane. Or maybe I'm just done being the family doormat. Damien tried pushing past me into my apartment. I blocked him. You're not coming in. You don't live here and you're not welcome. I just want to talk. Then talk from the hallway where Mrs. Chen can call the cops if you get violent. He noticed her watching and calmed down slightly. Look, Dad's threatening to disown you. Mom's not sleeping. This is tearing the family apart. Family was already torn apart. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. If you just apologize and help pay for another car? I laughed. Why would I do that? You never apologized for breaking in. You never returned my headset. You never faced any consequences for violating my space. But somehow I'm supposed to apologize and pay for destroying Dad's toy? It wasn't a toy. It was a classic car worth serious money. And my gaming PC wasn't a toy either. It was 2 years of work and serious money to me. But you called it just gaming stuff. So Dad's car is just car stuff. Damien looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't understand why I wasn't seeing his point. That's the thing about golden children. They're so used to the world revolving around them that they can't comprehend other people having legitimate grievances. You're being petty, he finally said. Yep, learned it from watching you. He stood there for another minute, trying to think of something to say, then left. I closed the door and went back to my normal evening routine. The family went radio silent for about 2 weeks. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. I figured they were either done with me or plotting something elaborate. Then I got a Facebook message from Dad. Not his usual profile. He'd created a new account just to contact me since I'd blocked his regular one. We need to meet. Family mediator. Neutral location. This has gone too far. I was skeptical, but curious. Agreed to meet at a coffee shop on Saturday afternoon. Showed up to find Dad, Mom, and some woman in a professional blazer sitting at a corner table. The woman introduced herself as Patricia, a family counselor specializing in conflict resolution. This would be interesting. Patricia started with the standard mediator speech about safe spaces, respect, and working toward mutual understanding. Then she asked Dad to explain his perspective. Dad launched into a 15-minute speech about the Mustang, how he'd bought it in 1995, restored it piece by piece, how it represented years of work and passion, how devastating it was to see his life's hobby destroyed by his own son out of spite. Patricia nodded sympathetically and took notes. Then she turned to me. And your perspective? I laid out everything. Damien breaking into my apartment, using a key my parents gave him without permission. The violation of my privacy and property. The stolen headset that was never returned. How my parents dismissed all of it as me being dramatic over just gaming stuff. I explained to them that my gaming PC represented 2 years of saving and work, that it mattered to me the same way Dad's car mattered to him. They told me to get over it because it was just toys. So I applied their logic to Dad's car. Just metal and parts. Nothing to get worked up about. Patricia asked if I understood the difference in monetary value between a gaming PC and a classic Mustang. Absolutely. Dad's car was worth about $75,000. My PC was worth about $3,200. But the principle is the same. Someone violated property that took time and effort to build. The dollar amount doesn't change that it's wrong. Dad jumped in. You can build another computer. I can't get that car back. You can buy another '67 Mustang and restore it. Probably take 15 years like last time, but it's possible. Same effort you're asking me to put into replacing my violated property. Patricia tried redirecting. Let's focus on moving forward rather than who was more wronged. What would resolution look like for each of you? Dad wanted me to pay for a replacement Mustang. Said he'd seen similar models for sale between $60,000 to $80,000, depending on condition. If I couldn't pay the full amount immediately, we could work out a payment plan. And what consequences will Damien face for breaking into my apartment? I asked. Mom bristled. Damien already apologized. No, he didn't. He never apologized even once. He called me a baby and said I was being dramatic. Well, he's sorry now. Where is he? Why isn't he here apologizing in person? Silence. Apparently, they hadn't even told Damien about this meeting because they knew he wouldn't apologize. Patricia asked what I wanted as resolution. I want acknowledgement that Damien violated my property the same way I violated Dad's. I want equal consequences applied. If I have to pay $75,000 for the car, Damien has to pay $3,200 for my PC. And he returns my headset or pays $300 to replace it. Plus, he apologizes for breaking in, and you apologize for giving him access to my apartment. Dad's face turned purple. That's not the same thing at all. Why not? Because your computer is replaceable. My car was one of a kind. Your car was one of 72,000 Mustang Fastbacks built in 1967. My custom PC build was literally one of a kind. I designed and built it myself. Nobody else has the exact same configuration, so actually mine was more unique. Patricia tried mediating, but it was pointless. Dad wanted me to pay for his car without Damien facing any consequences. I wanted equal treatment. Neither of us would budge. The meeting ended with nothing resolved. Dad called me spiteful and vindictive. I called him a hypocrite who only cared about property when it was his own. Mom cried. Patricia looked tired. As we left, I heard Dad tell Patricia that he'd raised an ungrateful son who destroyed his most prized possession out of jealousy and spite. That stung for about 30 seconds. Then I remembered watching Damien break into my apartment on camera while my parents dismissed my concerns. The sting faded pretty quick. Month 3 after the car incident, things settled into a new normal. I was officially estranged from my parents and Damien. They'd stopped trying to contact me. I'd stopped caring what they thought. Work was going well. Got promoted to lead technician with a raise, which was nice. Used some of the extra money to build a new gaming PC. Even better specs than the last one. This time, I kept the security camera running 24/7 and installed a smart lock that sent alerts to my phone whenever someone tried to use a key. Mrs. Chen told me she saw Damien trying to get into my apartment twice. Once he tried his old key in the new lock, then stood there looking confused when it didn't work. Second time, he actually tried to jimmy the door with a credit card, like some amateur burglar. She called the building manager both times, and he got trespassed from the property. According to Felicia, who still had contact with that side of the family, Dad had become obsessed with finding another Mustang to restore. He'd apparently taken out a loan for $30,000 to buy a project car that needed significant work. Mom was furious about the debt, but couldn't stop him. He's having a whole midlife crisis over this, Felicia reported during one of our weekly calls. Keeps talking about teaching you a lesson and proving he can rebuild. Good for him. Maybe it'll keep him busy enough to stop enabling Damien. Oh, about Damien, he got a job. No way. Yep, bagging groceries at the store near their house. Apparently they cut off his allowance to help pay for the Mustang, so he had to find work. That was the first consequence Damien had faced for anything in his entire life. Got a job because his parents needed money, for something other than babying him. How's he handling actual work? According to my mom, he hates it and complains constantly. But he's been there 3 weeks, so maybe it'll stick. We laughed about the image of Damien in a grocery store uniform, finally experiencing what the rest of us learned at 16. The next development came from an unexpected source. Raymond from the salvage yard called me. Hey, so remember that Mustang you brought in? Yeah? Your dad's been calling me every week asking about parts. Wants to know if I kept anything before scrapping it. Been pretty persistent. What did you tell him? Truth, that we sold the engine, stripped the interior, crushed the body. But he keeps asking like maybe I'm hiding a fender in the back or something. Sorry he's bothering you. Nah, it's fine. Actually calling because I thought you should know he's been telling people in the car community that you stole his vehicle. Some of the guys in the Mustang Club are apparently pretty worked up about it. Worked up how? Nothing serious, just old dudes griping about ungrateful kids. But figured you'd want a heads up in case any of them try contacting you. I thanked Raymond and hung up. Dad was out there playing victim to his car buddies, probably leaving out the whole part about Damien breaking into my apartment and my parents enabling it. Sure enough, few days later I got a Facebook message from some guy named Rick, who claimed to be in Dad's Mustang Club. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your father spent decades on that car, and you destroyed it out of spite. There's a special place in hell for people like you. I replied, ask him about the time his other son broke into my apartment, using keys my parents gave him without permission. Ask him why property only matters when it's his property. Rick never responded, but I got blocked pretty quick. This happened a few more times. Random middle-aged car guys sending me messages about respecting classics and family and tradition. Each time I gave them the full story. Some apologized. Most just stopped messaging. The vindication came from an unexpected place. I got an email from my former dentist, Dr. Patel. He'd retired last year but apparently still kept tabs on industry news and former employees. Saw your name mentioned in a dental lab forum. Someone was asking about your work quality. Wanted you to know I gave you a glowing recommendation. You always did excellent work and I was lucky to have you at my practice. Hope things are going well. That email hit different. Here was someone who'd actually valued my work and skills. No family obligation required. Just professional respect based on merit. Made me realize how much of my self-worth had been tied up in trying to earn my parents' approval and recognition. Approval that would never come because I wasn't Damien. Started seeing things clearer after that. The family dynamics I'd normalized for years were actually pretty messed up. Damien got away with everything because they saw him as needing help and support. I got held to higher standards because they saw me as capable and self-sufficient. Classic case of punishing competence and rewarding helplessness. Around month 4, I got a letter in the mail. Actual physical letter, which was weird enough that I almost threw it away thinking it was junk mail. It was from Mom, handwritten on her fancy stationery. The letter was 6 pages of emotional manipulation masquerading as a heartfelt apology. She was sorry things had gotten so out of hand. She understood I felt hurt, but family was important, and we needed to find a way to move past this. Then came the real ask. Dad's birthday was coming up, and it would mean the world to him if I attended. Could we please put aside our differences for one day to celebrate as a family? The letter never acknowledged what actually happened, never admitted that giving Damien my key was wrong, never recognized that dismissing my property as just gaming stuff while mourning Dad's car as irreplaceable was hypocritical. Just surface-level sorry you're upset language, designed to make her feel better about the situation without actually addressing the problems. I didn't respond. Dad's birthday came and went. Felicia told me they'd had a small party at the house, just close family. Dad apparently spent most of the evening in the garage working on his new Mustang project and complaining about ungrateful children. Mom asked me if I'd talk to you, Felicia said. I told her, yeah, we talk every week. She got weird about it. Asked if I was taking sides. What did you say? That there weren't sides, just consequences for actions. She didn't like that. The family started taking their frustration out on Felicia after that, calling her less, excluding her from events, making pointed comments about loyalty, standard manipulation tactics for anyone who doesn't fall in line. I'm used to it, Felicia said. They pulled the same thing when I moved to Colorado. You're not really family unless you're supporting the current narrative. That was the thing about families like ours. Belonging was conditional, based on compliance and blind loyalty rather than actual bonds. By month 6, I'd fully adjusted to life without them. Holidays became easier. I'd either work or spend time with friends who were also estranged from family. Turns out lots of people have dysfunctional families they've distanced themselves from. We formed our own makeshift holiday group, which was honestly more fun than obligatory family dinners ever were. Built a good friend group through work and hobbies. People who valued me for me, not for what I could provide or how I compared to a sibling. Got really into rock climbing and joined a gym where everyone was supportive and drama-free. Started seeing someone, Julie, a dental hygienist I met through work connections. Told her about the family situation early on because I didn't want any surprises. So you scrapped your dad's vintage Mustang because your brother broke into your apartment? Essentially, yeah. She thought about it. That's pretty ruthless. But I get it. My brother used to steal my stuff constantly, and my parents always made excuses for him. If I'd had the nerve to do what you did, maybe he would have learned boundaries earlier. Having someone understand without judgment was refreshing. Julie got that sometimes you have to do extreme things to make a point when people refuse to listen to reasonable requests. We'd been dating about 2 months when I got another surprise visit. This time from Damien, showing up at the rock climbing gym where I was bouldering with friends. He walked in looking uncomfortable in the athletic environment, clearly out of his element. Found me between climbs and asked to talk privately. We went outside to the parking lot. Look, I know we haven't talked in a while, he started. 6 months. It's been 6 months. Right. So I wanted to apologize. For real this time. For breaking into your apartment and taking your headset. That was wrong. I waited. There had to be more. Mom and Dad are making me do this, he admitted. Said they won't help pay my car insurance unless I apologize to you and try to fix things. There it was. Not a genuine apology, just another manipulation tactic from parents using financial leverage to force a reconciliation. So you're not actually sorry. You're just being forced to pretend you're sorry to keep getting money from them. I mean, I am sorry it caused such a huge issue. I didn't think you'd actually scrap Dad's car over it. That's not an apology. That's you being sorry about consequences, not sorry about actions. Damien looked frustrated. What do you want me to say? That I'm a terrible person? That I ruined everything? Fine, I'm terrible and I ruined everything. Happy now? Still not an apology. Forget it. I tried. You're just going to stay mad forever. Because you're holding a grudge. Nope, I'm not mad. I just don't have any interest in having a relationship with you or our parents. You all taught me that property and boundaries don't matter unless they're yours. So I applied that lesson. Now I'm living my life without the constant drama and manipulation. It's actually pretty great. Damien looked like he wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. Finally, he just said, Dad's really messed up about the car. Like, really bad. He spent all his money trying to rebuild one and it's still not the same. Good. Maybe he'll understand how I felt watching you break into my apartment and use my stuff. It's not the same. It's exactly the same. The only difference is whose property got violated. When it was mine, nobody cared. When it was Dad's, suddenly property is sacred. Damien left without another word. I went back inside and finished my climbing session. Julie asked if everything was okay, and I told her it was. Just family trying to manipulate their way back into my life. You staying strong? She asked. Yeah. They haven't figured out that I don't need them anymore. Maybe they never will. Last I heard through Felicia, Dad finally finished his Mustang rebuild. Took him 8 months and about $45,000 total. The car looked good in photos, but it wasn't the same as his original. Different VIN, different history, just another restored Mustang instead of the one he'd owned for decades. Mom apparently throws it in his face during arguments. How much the project cost, how it's his fault for raising a vindictive son, how they had to take money from retirement savings to finish it. Damien still works at the grocery store but got promoted to assistant manager. Apparently, he's decent at the job when people hold him accountable. Who knew actual consequences could lead to growth? As for me, I'm doing better than ever. Got another promotion at work. Julie and I moved in together, building a life that's mine, free from family obligation and toxic dynamics. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. My brother emptied my accounts and vanished with my girlfriend. I was heartbroken, until my 13-year-old daughter said, Dad, don't worry, I handled it. Then days later, my brother called screaming. So this happened about 8 months ago, and I'm finally ready to talk about it because the fallout is still giving me life. I'm 34, work in logistics management, and thought I had my life pretty much figured out. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Let me set the scene. I've got a daughter, Lily, who just turned 13. She lives with me full time after her mom passed away from cancer 3 years ago. Yeah, that part sucks, but we've built a solid life together. Just the two of us against the world type of thing. She's sharp as hell, way smarter than I was at her age, and honestly more mature than most adults I know. The kind of kid who taught herself to code at 10 because she was bored during summer break. The kind who reads cybersecurity articles for fun and corrects my password choices. After her mom died, it was rough for both of us. I won't pretend otherwise. But we figured it out. Created routines, learned to communicate, became this tight unit that didn't need anyone else. She'd come to my office after school sometimes, do homework in the break room while I finished up. We'd grab dinner on the way home, talk about our days, just exist together in this comfortable space we'd built. I worked hard to make sure she had stability. Made every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every science fair. Learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. Figured out the whole period talk way earlier than I was ready for. We were doing okay. Better than okay, actually. Then there's my brother, Kyle. 2 years younger than me. Always been the golden child in our family despite being a complete screw-up. I'm talking dropped out of college twice. Couldn't hold a job for more than 6 months. Borrowed money from everyone including our 80-year-old grandmother. But somehow he had this charm that made people give him endless chances. Our parents always made excuses for him while I was expected to have my life together because I was the responsible one. Growing up, I was the one who got lectured about responsibility when I brought home a B. Kyle could fail entire semesters, and our parents would talk about how school just wasn't his thing, how he'd find his path eventually. I paid for my own college working 2 jobs. Kyle got his tuition paid for twice before he dropped out both times. I bought my first car with money I'd saved since I was 15. Kyle got 3 cars bought for him after he wrecked or sold the previous ones. The pattern never changed. I'd build something, achieve something, work for something, and it was just expected. Kyle would mess up, need help, create drama, and everyone would rush to fix it for him. Made family gatherings fun, let me tell you. Nothing like watching your parents hand your brother money while telling you that you're doing great and don't need any help. And finally, there's Brittany. We'd been dating for about a year and a half. Met her at a friend's cookout. She was funny, seemed down to earth, worked as a dental hygienist. She had this laugh that made other people want to laugh, told decent stories, didn't seem high maintenance. Things were good. Not perfect, but good enough that I was thinking about long-term plans. I introduced her to Lily after about 3 months of dating. Didn't want to parade people through my daughter's life if they weren't going to stick around. Brittany seemed to understand that. Said she appreciated me being a protective dad. They got along okay. Not besties or anything, but Lily would hang out with us sometimes. Didn't complain when Brittany came over. That was good enough for me. Brittany knew the deal from the start. Lily came first. Always. If there was a conflict between something Brittany wanted to do and something Lily needed, Lily won. Every time. Brittany said she got it, said she respected it. Looking back, I think she just said what I wanted to hear. There were small things I overlooked. The way she'd get annoyed if I had to cancel plans because Lily was sick. How she'd make comments about Lily being old enough to stay home alone more often. Little suggestions that maybe I was being too protective, too involved, too focused on my kid. I'd brush it off, tell myself she just didn't understand because she didn't have children. Should have paid more attention to those red flags. Should have noticed that someone who claims to respect your priorities but constantly tries to change them isn't actually respectful at all. But I was lonely, and she was there, and it was nice to have another adult around sometimes. So I ignored the signs. Here's where it gets interesting. About 9 months ago, Kyle showed up at my place looking rough. Said he'd lost his apartment, got behind on rent, needed a place to crash for a couple weeks. The story was the same as always. Bad luck, circumstances beyond his control, just needed a little help to get back on his feet. Our parents had apparently finally cut him off financially after the 5th or 6th time he'd asked for rent money. So I was his next stop. I should have said no. I really should have. Every instinct told me this was a mistake. But he's family. And despite everything, there was still this small part of me that thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe if I helped him, he'd actually get his act together. And yeah, I'm apparently an idiot. So I let him stay in the spare room. Figured 2 weeks wouldn't kill me. Lily wasn't happy about it. She'd never really liked Kyle, even when she was younger. Said he gave her bad vibes. When I told her he was staying with us temporarily, she looked at me and said, "This is going to end badly." I told her to give him a chance. She said, "When has giving him a chance ever worked out?" Couldn't really argue with that, but I'd already said yes. 2 weeks turned into 3, then 4, then 6. He wasn't looking for jobs despite saying he was. I'd come home and he'd be on the couch playing video games, same spot as when I left that morning. Wouldn't help with dishes, wouldn't take out trash, wouldn't even clean up after himself. He'd eat the groceries I bought, use the utilities I paid for, and contribute absolutely nothing. When I'd bring it up, he'd get defensive. Say he was dealing with depression, needed time to figure things out. I was being too harsh on him. Brittany would back him up. Tell me I should be more understanding, more supportive. That family helps family. She'd give me these disappointed looks like I was being the unreasonable one for expecting a 32-year-old man to contribute to the household he was living in for free. That should have been a massive red flag, like air raid siren sized. But I just thought she had a soft heart, didn't understand how Kyle operated, didn't realize she was already on his side for a reason. I work long hours sometimes. Logistics management means I'm dealing with shipping schedules, warehouse issues, driver problems, inventory discrepancies, the whole 9 yards. Some weeks I'd pull 50 to 60 hours easy, especially during busy seasons. The job pays well, keeps a roof over our heads, funds Lily's college savings account, so I don't complain about the hours. Brittany worked more normal hours, usually done by 4 p.m., had weekends off unless there was an emergency. Kyle was always home, obviously, since he wasn't actually looking for work. Looking back, I can map out exactly when it started. About 3 weeks after Kyle moved in. That's when Brittany started finding reasons to come over when I wasn't home. Just wanted to check on Kyle, make sure he's doing okay. Or, I brought over some food I made, thought you guys might want it. Always these thoughtful-seeming gestures that put her in my house when I wasn't there. Lily mentioned it to me once. Said Brittany was coming over a lot during the day. I asked Brittany about it. Casual-like. She said she was worried about Kyle's mental state. Wanted to make sure he wasn't isolating himself. I thought it was nice of her to care. Yeah, nice. You can probably see where this is going. I started noticing little things. Brittany's car at my place on days she said she was working late. Kyle suddenly being in a good mood all the time, actually showering regularly, doing his laundry. The spare room door locked during the day when I'd come home for lunch, which was weird because Kyle never locked doors. Once I heard whispering stop abruptly when I came in through the garage, but I talked myself out of suspecting anything, because surely nobody could be that trashy, right? Surely my own brother wouldn't cross that line. Surely Brittany, who I'd been planning a future with, wouldn't do that to me. I made excuses. Told myself I was being paranoid. The car thing was coincidence. Kyle was finally getting his life together. That's why he was in better spirits. The locked door was about privacy. Lily wasn't buying it. She'd watch Brittany and Kyle interact during the rare times I was home when Brittany visited, and I could see her brain working. She'd get this look on her face, this suspicious, calculating look. One night she asked me, "Dad, do you think Brittany and Uncle Kyle are acting weird together?" I asked what she meant. She shrugged. "I don't know. They just seem, I don't know, different when you're not around." I told her she was probably imagining things. She looked at me like I was being deliberately dense. "Okay, Dad, if you say so." That was about a week before everything blew up. The real fun started on a Tuesday. I'd been planning to surprise Brittany with dinner reservations for our anniversary. Nothing fancy, just this Italian place she liked. I'd made reservations weeks ago, had it all planned out. Was going to leave work early, pick her up, nice dinner, maybe a walk after. Simple stuff. I got off work at 2 p.m., stopped by her apartment to pick her up around 2:30, used the spare key she'd given me months ago for emergencies. Called out when I walked in. No answer. The apartment was empty, but her work bag was there on the kitchen counter. Her car was in the lot. Her phone was somewhere inside. I could see her laptop open on the couch, with a half-finished cup of coffee next to it. Everything looked normal, like she'd just stepped out for a minute. Except she wasn't there. That weird feeling hit my stomach. You know the one. That instinct that something's wrong, but you can't quite place it. I called her phone. Heard it ringing from the bedroom. Walked in there, and her phone was on the nightstand next to the bed, buzzing with my call, plugged into charge. Next to a note in her handwriting with my address on it, and 2:30 written underneath. My address. The time I'd said I'd pick her up, like she'd needed a reminder. But she wasn't here. She was somewhere else at 2:30, and I knew exactly where. I'm not an idiot. Well, I am. but not that much of one. The pieces clicked together all at once. The car at my place, the locked door, the whispering, Brittany's sudden support of Kyle, her being at my house during the day. All of it made horrible, perfect sense. I drove home going exactly the speed limit because I wasn't about to catch a ticket on top of whatever was waiting for me. Took me 17 minutes. I counted. Pulled into my driveway at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Both their cars were there. Kyle's beat-up Honda and Brittany's Toyota parked side by side in my driveway, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The front door was unlocked. I walked in quiet. The house was too quiet, actually, except for noise coming from the spare room. The room where Kyle was staying. Sounds that made it crystal clear what was happening in there. I stood outside that door for maybe 30 seconds, just processing. Part of me wanted to kick it down. Part of me wanted to walk out and pretend I'd never seen anything. Part of me just felt hollow, empty, like I was watching this happen to someone else. Then I thought about Lily, about what she'd think if I just let this slide, about what kind of example that would set, about the fact that this was my house, my life, my relationship, and my brother, and I wasn't going to be the coward who just accepted it. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder, hit record, knocked on the door loud enough to be heard clearly over whatever was happening inside. The scrambling inside was almost funny. Almost. Lots of movement, rushed whispers, the sound of people trying to get dressed fast. I didn't yell, didn't break the door down, didn't even raise my voice. Just said through it, nice and calm, "Kyle, Brittany, you've got 30 minutes to be out of my house. After that, I'm calling the police for trespassing. Your time starts now." Then I turned off the recording, walked to my living room, and sat on the couch. Pulled up the police non-emergency number on my phone. Set a timer for 30 minutes. Waited. My hands were shaking. Not from anger yet, that would come later. Just from adrenaline. From the sheer unreality of the situation. My brother and my girlfriend. In my house. In the spare room where I'd let him stay, out of the goodness of my heart. They came out about 15 minutes later. Brittany was crying. Makeup smeared. Trying to fix her hair. Kyle had this look on his face. This almost smirk. Like he was trying not to laugh. Like this was all some big joke. Like he'd won something. Brittany started immediately. "Baby, please let me explain. This isn't what it looks like." I held up my hand. "Stop. I don't want to hear it. But you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've been sleeping with my brother in my house while I was at work. There's nothing to explain. Now leave." She tried a different approach. Started apologizing, saying it was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. She loved me. We could work through this. All the greatest hits. I just kept saying, "Leave." Kyle finally spoke up, and that smirk was still there. "Come on, man. Don't be dramatic. These things happen. Nobody got hurt." I looked at him. Really looked at him. This person who shared my DNA, who I'd defended to our parents, who I'd let into my home when nobody else would. And I felt nothing. No brotherly love, no family connection, nothing. "You lived in my house," I said. "Ate my food. Used my electricity, my water, my Wi-Fi. I gave you a place to stay when mom and dad wouldn't. And you decided to repay me by sleeping with my girlfriend. We're done. Get out." The smirk faded a little. "You're really going to throw me out over this? You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. You've got 15 minutes left." Brittany tried again. Kept crying, kept apologizing. Tried to touch my arm and I stepped back. Told her she needed to leave now. Kyle grabbed his stuff from the spare room. Didn't take long since he'd been living out of a duffel bag anyway. Brittany just stood there crying until I told her one more time to go. They finally left. I locked the door behind them, engaged the deadbolt, put on the chain. Then I went to my room and just sat on the bed. Felt absolutely nothing at first. Just numb. Empty. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left a shell. Didn't cry. Didn't punch walls. Just sat there staring at nothing. Around 3:15, reality started setting in. The anger hadn't hit yet. Just this overwhelming sense of betrayal. My brother. My own brother. The person who was supposed to have my back. Who I'd defended my entire life. Who I'd taken in when he had nowhere else to go. And my girlfriend. Who I'd been planning a future with. Who'd met my daughter. Who I'd trusted. Gone. Both of them. Or not gone yet, technically. But they might as well have been. The relationships were dead the second I heard those sounds through that door. Lily came home from school around 3:30. She takes the bus, usually gets home between 3:25 and 3:35 depending on traffic. I heard her key in the lock, heard her backpack hit the floor in the entryway like it does every day. She called out, "I'm home," like normal. I didn't answer right away. Couldn't quite get my voice to work. She walked into the living room, saw me sitting there, and stopped. Just stopped in the doorway and looked at me. This kid who'd been reading my moods since she was old enough to talk, who knew every expression on my face, who could tell when something was wrong before I even opened my mouth. "What happened?" she asked. Not, "What's wrong?" or "Are you okay?" Just straight to, "What happened?" Because she knew something had. I told her. Kept it age appropriate but honest. I wasn't going to lie to her or sugarcoat it. She deserved the truth. I said that I'd caught Uncle Kyle and Brittany together, that they'd been seeing each other behind my back, that they were gone now and wouldn't be coming back. Her face went through about 5 different emotions in rapid succession. Shock first, then understanding like pieces were clicking together, then anger, then something colder, something calculating. "That's disgusting," she said, and her voice had this flat quality to it that I'd never heard before. "Uncle Kyle is trash, and she's worse for going along with it. Can't argue with that assessment." She came and sat next to me on the couch. Didn't try to hug me or say comforting things. Just sat there. After a minute, she said, "I knew something was going on. I tried to tell you. I know, you were right. I should have listened." "Yeah, you should have." She wasn't being mean about it, just stating facts. "So what are you going to do now?" Honest answer. I had no idea. I was just trying to process it all, trying to figure out how my life had imploded in the space of an afternoon. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Change the locks tomorrow. Figure out the rest as I go." She nodded, pulled out her phone and started typing something. I didn't ask what. Figured she was texting a friend or something, venting about her uncle being terrible. I left her alone. We ordered pizza for dinner that night. Didn't feel like cooking, didn't feel like talking. Just ate in silence while watching some mindless show on TV. Normal evening routine with this massive thing hanging over both of us that we weren't addressing yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, brain running through everything. How long had it been going on? Had they laughed about me? Had this been their plan from the start? Or did it just happen? Did it even matter? Around 2 a.m., I got up and started thinking about practical things. Couldn't change the past, but I could protect the future. Changed all my passwords on my phone right then. Bank accounts, email, social media, everything. Set up 2-factor authentication on anything that would let me. Called a locksmith first thing Wednesday morning. Had them come out and change all the locks by noon. Cost me $300, but it was worth it to know Kyle couldn't just walk back in. While the locksmith worked, I went through the house looking for anything Kyle might have left behind. Found some clothes, toiletries, a charger. Threw it all in a trash bag and left it on the porch. Then I called the bank. Needed to make sure my accounts were secure. That Kyle hadn't tried anything while he'd been living here. The automated system told me to log in online to check recent activity. I logged in around 1 p.m. Wednesday afternoon. Checked my checking account first. Balance looked wrong. Way wrong. Should have had about $8,000 in there from my last paycheck and what was left from the month. Balance showed $342. Felt my stomach drop. Checked the transaction history. 3 transfers. One Tuesday night at 11:47 p.m. for $3,000. One Wednesday morning at 2:15 a.m. for $2,500. One Wednesday at 6:33 a.m. for $2,100. All to an external account. All marked as completed. Clicked over to savings. Should have had about $28,000 in there. College fund for Lily, emergency savings, everything. Balance showed $3,200. More transfers. 5 of them over Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, totaling $24,800. Status showed pending on most of them, but one for $8,000 had already cleared. Checked my retirement account, the one through work. Someone had tried to access it. Login attempt starting Tuesday at 11:52 p.m., continuing through the night. The account was locked due to suspicious activity. I called the bank. Hands shaking so bad I could barely dial. Got transferred 3 times before reaching someone in fraud prevention. Explained what happened. She asked me to verify some information, checked the accounts, made some notes. "Sir, it appears these transfers were initiated using your valid login credentials and security information. The authentication was successful on all attempts." "I didn't make those transfers," I said. "Someone stole my information. Do you know who might have had access to your account details?" "Yeah, I knew exactly who. My brother, who'd lived in my house for 6 weeks. Who'd probably watched me log into accounts, who could have looked through my papers, who I'd stupidly trusted not to steal from me. And Brittany, who I'd given my bank login to 6 months ago when I had the flu and needed her to pay some bills for me. Who'd said she deleted the information after, but obviously hadn't. Told the fraud rep all of this. She made more notes, said they'd start an investigation. But these things take time. Asked if I wanted to file a police report. Yeah, I did. Spent Wednesday afternoon at the police station. Filed a report for identity theft and fraud. Gave them everything. The timeline, the amounts, Kyle's information, Brittany's involvement. The officer taking the report was sympathetic but honest. Said these cases are hard to prove, especially with family. Even with evidence, might take months to resolve. Might not get the money back at all. Asked what I should do in the meantime. He suggested getting a lawyer, freezing my credit, monitoring everything closely, and honestly, accepting that the money might be gone. Drove home feeling worse than I had Tuesday. Tuesday was emotional betrayal. This was financial destruction. That money represented years of savings. Lily's education, our security, gone. Transferred to Kyle's account while he was planning his exit. Thursday morning, I woke up to 17 alerts from my bank. More transfer attempts. All blocked now since I'd reported the fraud. But it showed Kyle was still trying. The retirement account, my credit cards, even tried to open a new line of credit in my name. The bank's fraud department called me directly. Asked me to come in, bring ID, sign some affidavits. Spent 2 hours there Thursday afternoon going through everything. They could reverse the savings transfers that hadn't cleared yet. Got back about $16,800 of that. But the checking account money? Already gone. Sent to Kyle's account, which he'd apparently emptied immediately at an ATM. Multiple withdrawals. Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Maximum daily limit each time. Total amount I'd lost. Just over $43,000. I had about $900 in my wallet and the savings money they'd frozen pending investigation, which I couldn't access yet. My mortgage payment was due in a week. Lily's school expenses, groceries, utilities, car payment, insurance, everything ran through that checking account. Everything was set up on autopay, and there was no money to pay any of it. I sat in my car outside the bank and felt completely defeated. Not angry yet, that would come later. Just completely defeated. My brother had stolen from me twice in 1 week. Took my girlfriend, took my money, and left me holding the bag, while he and Brittany ran off to start their new life funded by my savings. Called my boss, explained I had a family emergency and needed to take a personal day Friday. He was cool about it, said take whatever time I needed. Good boss. Didn't ask questions. Drove home in a daze. Thursday afternoon, about 4 p.m. Lily was already back from school, doing homework at the kitchen table like normal. She looked up when I walked in, took one look at my face and put down her pencil. "It's bad, isn't it?" she asked. I sat down across from her, told her about the money, all of it. How much was gone, how it happened, what the bank said, what the police said. Watched her process it all. Expected her to freak out, cry, panic. We were financially ruined. Her college fund was gone. Our emergency savings was gone. We were screwed. Instead, she got very quiet, very still. That calculating look came back to her face. Then she said, "Dad, don't worry. I handled it." I blinked at her. "What do you mean you handled it?" She pulled out her phone, opened it, and showed me a folder with about 40 screenshots. Bank transfers, text messages, photos, documents I didn't recognize. "When did you do this?" I asked. "Tuesday night after you told me." I couldn't sleep, so I did some digging. Turns out my 13-year-old daughter is way more tech-savvy than I gave her credit for. While I was lying awake feeling sorry for myself, she'd hacked into Kyle's email account, used a password recovery method combined with some information she knew about him, got into his email, then his social media, then started documenting everything she found. The text messages between Kyle and Brittany going back 4 months. Planning when to hook up, laughing about hiding it from me, talking about taking my money and running off together. Brittany telling Kyle about my bank account information because I'd given her my passwords once when I was sick and needed her to pay some bills. Kyle planning the whole theft, discussing how much he could take, when to do it, where they'd go after. They were planning to move to Arizona, apparently. Start fresh with my money. But here's the thing that made me actually smile for the first time in days. Lily hadn't just collected evidence. She'd been busy on Tuesday night. She'd forwarded all those screenshots to our parents, to Kyle's employer from his last job, to Brittany's boss at the dental office, to Brittany's parents, who apparently had no idea their daughter was involved with a guy living with his brother, to my extended family, to mutual friends. Then she'd posted a carefully edited version on Kyle's social media accounts before changing the passwords and locking him out. Nothing graphic, nothing that would get her in trouble, just a simple statement. For anyone wondering why I vanished, I stole $43,000 from my brother after sleeping with his girlfriend in his house. If you've ever trusted me with anything, you might want to check your accounts. The post had been up for about 6 hours before Kyle managed to get it taken down. But by then, over 200 people had seen it, shared it, commented on it. I looked at my daughter, this kid who should have been worried about algebra homework and friend drama, and I didn't know whether to ground her or hug her. Lily, you can't just hack into people's accounts, I said, trying to sound like a responsible parent. She looked at me dead in the eye. He stole from us. She betrayed you. They were going to run away with your money, Dad. Our money. The money for my college fund. For our house. For everything. I wasn't going to let them just get away with it. Hard to argue with that logic. What else did you do? I asked, kind of afraid of the answer. She smiled. Actually smiled. I sent all the evidence to the police detective handling your case. Figured it might speed things up. And I may have sent the screenshots to the bank's fraud department with a detailed timeline of when Kyle had access to your information and when the transfers happened. This kid. This brilliant, terrifying kid. Friday was quiet. Too quiet. I spent the morning on the phone with the bank's fraud department. With Lily's evidence, they were able to start the process of freezing Kyle's account and recovering the money. Still going to take time, but now they had proof it was actual theft, not a family dispute. The detective called me that afternoon, said they'd received an anonymous email with comprehensive evidence of bank fraud and identity theft, asked if I knew anything about that. I said I didn't, which was technically true since Lily sent it anonymously. He chuckled, said whoever sent it did them a huge favor. They could now pursue actual charges instead of just treating it as a civil matter. Asked if I wanted to press charges. Yeah, I did. Saturday morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. Unknown number. Almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Kyle. And he was screaming. I mean, full-on losing his mind screaming. Took me a minute to even understand what he was saying through the rage and panic. Apparently, his life had fallen apart. Like, completely imploded. Our parents had called him Friday night, seen all the evidence Lily sent them. Our dad, who'd always babied Kyle, told him he was ashamed to call him his son. Cut him off completely. Our mom was so disgusted she couldn't even talk to him, just handed the phone to Dad. His former employer had sent the screenshots to his new potential employer. The job he'd lined up in Arizona? Gone. They called to tell him they'd decided to go with another candidate. Brittany's boss fired her immediately. Apparently, stealing patient information to help her boyfriend commit fraud was a violation of about 17 workplace policies. Her dental hygiene license was under review by the state board. Brittany's parents had frozen her trust fund access. I didn't even know she had a trust fund, but apparently her grandparents left her something she couldn't touch until 25, except her parents were the trustees. They'd immediately filed paperwork to revoke her access permanently. The social media post had been shared over 400 times before it was taken down. People Kyle knew from high school, college, previous jobs, everyone saw it. His name was Mud. But here's the best part. Someone had reported his car as stolen, because technically our grandfather had co-signed on the loan, and when Grandpa found out what Kyle did, he called the lender and reported it as fraudulent use. The car got repossessed Saturday morning from the cheap motel parking lot where Kyle and Brittany were staying. The bank had frozen the account with my money in it and filed fraud charges. The money was held as evidence, which meant Kyle couldn't access it, couldn't use it, couldn't do anything with it. He was broke, and the police had issued a warrant for his arrest. All of this happened between Tuesday night and Saturday morning. 4 days. My daughter had orchestrated the complete destruction of Kyle's life in 4 days. Kyle was screaming about how I'd ruined him. How could I be so vindictive? How we were family and family doesn't do this to each other. I let him rant for about 2 minutes. Then I said very calmly, "You done?" He sputtered. He started up again about how this was an overreaction. "Kyle, you stole over $40,000 from me. You slept with my girlfriend in my house. You planned this for months. You were going to take my money and disappear. The only thing I did was file a police report about a crime you committed. Everything else? That's called consequences. It was that little brat, wasn't it?" he said. "Lily did something. She's the only one smart enough to—" I cut him off. "My daughter had nothing to do with your choices. You made every decision that got you here. Own it. I'm your brother. You were my brother. You stopped being my brother when you decided I was worth less than $43,000, and a woman you'd known for 6 weeks. Now you're just a guy who stole from me, and that guy is going to face the consequences." He tried a different approach. Started begging, crying, actually crying. Said he was sorry. He'd made a mistake. He'd pay me back somehow. Please don't let them arrest him. Too late, I said. You made your choice on Tuesday. Actually, you made your choice 4 months ago when you started planning this. You don't get to unmake it now that it didn't work out. What about Brittany? He asked. She's got nothing now. No job, no money. Her parents won't talk to her. Sounds like you two are perfect for each other then. Both made terrible choices. Both facing consequences. Maybe you can figure it out together. I'm going to jail, he said. And he actually sounded like he was just realizing this. Probably, I agreed. That's what happens when you commit fraud. He hung up. Or maybe his phone died. Either way, the call ended. I sat there for a minute, phone in my hand. Lily walked into the kitchen, looked at me. That was Uncle Kyle, wasn't it? She asked. Yeah. Is he mad? Very. Good. She made herself breakfast like nothing had happened, humming while she poured cereal. I watched her, this kid who'd just systematically destroyed an adult's entire life to protect us, and I felt something shift in my chest. Pride, maybe, or just love. Probably both. Hey, Lily, I said. She looked up. Thank you for protecting us, for being smart, for caring enough to do something. She shrugged. You're my dad. We're a team. Someone messes with you, they mess with me. That's how it works. Simple as that. In her world, it was black and white. Someone hurt her dad, she hurt them back. No hesitation, no second guessing. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Kyle got arrested trying to cross state lines. Flight risk, apparently. They denied him bail. Brittany cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for lesser charges. She gave them everything about how Kyle planned it. The bank recovered about $38,000 of my money. The rest got eaten up in fees. My savings was returned in full since those transfers never fully cleared. Took about 6 weeks total to get the money back. 6 weeks of juggling bills. My boss helped with an advance on my paycheck. My parents apologized for enabling Kyle. Dad sounded genuinely broken up. I told him actions matter more than words. Be there for Lily, I said. She's the one who saved us. They did. Started coming around more, taking her out once a week. Our extended family completely cut Kyle off. Nobody wanted anything to do with him after seeing what he'd done. Kyle pled guilty to avoid trial. His lawyer advised him that with the evidence against him, a trial would just result in a harsher sentence. Smart move. Probably the first smart decision he'd made in years. Sentencing hearing was in late April, about 10 weeks after everything went down. I attended. Wanted to look him in the eye one more time. Wanted him to see that I wasn't backing down. Wasn't forgiving him. Wasn't letting this slide. The courtroom was small. Just me, Kyle, his public defender, the prosecutor, the judge, and a court reporter. Kyle looked rough. Orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, hadn't shaved in days. He'd lost weight. Good. The judge reviewed the case, asked Kyle if he wanted to make a statement. Kyle stood up, looked at me, and started crying. Not the angry, aggressive crying from our phone call. Pathetic, desperate crying. He apologized, said he'd made terrible choices, asked for mercy, said he'd pay me back every penny. I sat there expressionless. Didn't react, didn't give him anything. The judge wasn't impressed either. She'd seen the evidence. Read the text messages where Kyle and Brittany laughed about stealing from me. Saw the planning that went into it. The attempts to access my retirement accounts, even after the initial theft. She gave him 3 years. Said the premeditated nature of the fraud, the family betrayal, and the lack of genuine remorse made it worse, not better. Said Kyle had shown a pattern of using people his entire life and needed to learn that actions have consequences. His lawyer tried to argue for probation. Said Kyle had no prior record, was going through a difficult time, showed genuine remorse. The judge shut that down fast. Said planning a theft for 4 months and executing it isn't a difficult time, it's a crime. Said crying in court isn't remorse, it's self-pity. 3 years, probably serve 18 months with good behavior. Kyle looked back at me as they led him away. I didn't look away, just stared right back. Let him see exactly how I felt about him. Nothing. Not anger, not hatred, not sadness, nothing. Brittany got sentenced a week later. I didn't attend that one, but the prosecutor called to tell me the outcome. Probation and community service. Had to pay restitution for her part in it, complete 200 hours of community service, stay out of trouble for 5 years. Any violation meant she'd serve 2 years. She also lost her dental hygiene license. The state board reviewed her case, decided that violating patient privacy and using confidential information to commit fraud was grounds for permanent revocation. She could never work in dental care again. All that education, all those licensing exams, gone. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents. They're making her pay rent, treating her like a tenant instead of a daughter. She works retail now, some clothing store at the mall, makes minimum wage, lives in her childhood bedroom at 29 years old. Her parents won't let her near the trust fund. They're holding it until she's 35 now, and even then, she'll only get partial access. They're donating a chunk of it to charity just to make a point about consequences. Kyle's got 12 more months to go as of now. He's at a minimum security facility about 100 miles away. Our parents visit him once a month. They invited me to come along once. I declined. They asked why. I said, "He's not my brother anymore. He's someone who stole from me and destroyed my trust. I don't visit people like that." Mom got upset. Said family is family, I should show forgiveness. Holding grudges isn't healthy. I told her that forgiveness is earned, not given. Kyle hasn't earned it. Sitting in jail feeling sorry for himself isn't earning it. Maybe in 10 years, after he's actually rebuilt his life and shown he's changed, maybe then we'll talk. But probably not. Dad understood. He said, "Your mother wants to believe people can change overnight. But you're right. Kyle needs to prove it, not just say it." People ask me sometimes if I regret how it all went down, if I wish I'd handled it differently, been less harsh, given Kyle another chance. If I feel guilty about him being in prison, honestly, no, not even a little bit. He made his choices, planned it out, executed it, tried to ruin me financially while betraying me personally. The fact that it blew up in his face isn't my fault. It's his. Every single consequence he's facing is a direct result of his own actions. Lily says she doesn't regret it either. Says Kyle needed to learn that actions have consequences, and nobody was teaching him that lesson. So she did. Hard to argue with a 13-year-old who's right. The other day, I got a letter from Kyle, written from jail. Long thing about how he's had time to think, realizes what he did was wrong, hopes someday I can forgive him. I read it once, then I tossed it in the recycling. Maybe in 10 years, I'll feel different. Maybe time will make me more forgiving. But right now, I've got nothing to say to him. He burned that bridge, dumped gasoline on it, and lit it on fire. You don't get to come back from that just because you wrote a nice letter from jail. Lily asked if I was going to write back. I said no. She nodded. Good. He doesn't deserve your forgiveness yet. Maybe not ever. Wise kid. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.